Most men live their lives with a romanticized idea of women, an image passed down through stories, media, and personal longing. It's the idea that women are gentle by nature, nurturing, pure, and above all, loyal. This image gives men a sense of purpose. It gives them something to protect, something to live for. But what if this image is nothing more than a comforting illusion? Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher, was one of the first to tear down this illusion in a way that made many uncomfortable. His observations were sharp, unflinching, and brutally honest. And though he was condemned for his views during his time, many of his warnings have aged with eerie accuracy. So today we explore a controversial but vital question. What is the hidden truth about female nature? And why does acknowledging it matter so deeply for men? Let's begin with the basic misunderstanding. Most men don't see women for what they are. They see them for what they want them to be. The feminine ideal is less about women themselves and more about a man's desire for comfort, love, and emotional safety. He projects those needs onto her and creates an image that feels good to believe in. But women are not angels. They are not saints. They are human beings, driven by instinct, shaped by survival, and deeply embedded in the laws of nature. Like men, women have needs. They adapt to what benefits them. They follow incentives, and yes, they can manipulate, deceive, or discard when those incentives shift. This doesn't make them evil. It makes them human. But the failure to recognize this, to believe instead in the fantasy, makes a man vulnerable to a rude awakening. Here's a truth no one wants to admit. Evolution didn't create women to be loyal. It created them to be adaptive. In ancient times, a woman's ability to survive and protect her offspring depended entirely on her ability to choose the strongest possible mate. That mate might not be the kindest, or the most moral, or even the most faithful. He was the one who could provide the greatest advantage. And when that advantage faded, her instincts told her to move on. This is why women are hyper-attuned to social dynamics. They can sense status, dominance, power, and vulnerability with uncanny precision. It's why women tend to lose interest the moment a man loses confidence or falls in value. Her biology tells her he's no longer a viable protector. This sounds cruel, but it's not personal. It's biological. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. A man loves idealistically. A woman loves conditionally. This has always been true, and it always will be. Men are capable of loving someone simply for being. A woman, on the other hand, usually loves based on what you are. Not who you are inside, but what you represent. Strength, ambition, status, certainty. The moment those qualities disappear, her feelings often vanish with them. What you thought was love was often interest, attraction, or dependency. And when your value fades, so does her loyalty. To the man still clinging to illusions, this is devastating. But to the man who understands, it's freeing. Because once you accept the game, you can stop being played by it. From a young age, boys are conditioned to serve women, protect them, provide for them, impress them, please them. Everything in a young man's life is shaped by the hope of being accepted by the feminine. But this dynamic creates a dangerous imbalance. The man becomes the servant and the woman becomes the prize. And the moment he begins living for her rather than for himself, he loses his value in her eyes. Women don't respect men who orbit them. They respect men who orbit a purpose. And the man who forgets this, who gives up his mission to please a woman, will always lose her, even if he wins her for a while. We often hear that women want kind, respectful, emotionally available men. And while that may be partly true, it's rarely what attracts them at a primal level. Women are drawn to power. That power might come from status, wealth, physical presence, social dominance, or psychological strength. But morality, That comes later, if it aligns with power. If it doesn't, it's ignored. This is why so many women are drawn to men others fear or admire, even if those men are morally questionable. It's why the bad boy trope exists. It's not about cruelty, it's about strength. Because to her instincts, strength means safety, and safety is what she's wired to seek. Most men argue with logic. Women don't need to. Their battlefield is emotional influence. A woman doesn't need to win an argument with facts. She wins by making you feel like the bad guy, by crying, withdrawing, becoming cold. These tactics make a man feel guilt, and guilt makes him submit. She doesn't do this consciously all the time. It's a learned survival tool. It's incredibly effective and dangerous if you're not aware of it. Men must learn emotional detachment, not coldness, but control. If you react emotionally, you give away your power, but if you remain calm, she loses the ability to steer you. The modern world punishes men who speak about female nature. You'll be called bitter, angry, misogynistic. But ask yourself, who benefits from your ignorance? Certainly not you. Acknowledging female nature doesn't mean hating women. It means seeing clearly. It means understanding the rules of the game so you can stop playing it like a fool, so you can start living like a man. Because once you know the truth, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop pleasing. You stop begging for love that was never unconditional to begin with. And in that freedom, you find your power. Arthur Schopenhauer once said that to understand woman is to understand that she is not evil, but different. And that difference is what men must learn to respect, not idealize. The man who sees clearly doesn't hate women. He respects them as they are, not as he wishes them to be. He stops trying to control them, convince them, or cling to them. Instead, he walks his path. And if a woman joins him, she joins his world, not the other way around. The most dangerous thing a man can do is build his life around a lie. The most powerful thing he can do is see the truth and live it anyway. We like to think of human nature as something refined, polished, something that has evolved past the crude instincts of our ancestors. But the truth is, beneath the polished surface, we are all still running on ancient software, millennia of biological programming humming beneath our skin. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the dynamics between men and women. Modern narratives want to tell us that men and women are essentially the same, that any perceived difference is merely social conditioning. But that's not the full story. The truth is far less comfortable. There are deep biological realities that drive the behavior of both sexes, realities we ignore at our own peril. And for men, coming to terms with female nature isn't about becoming bitter or resentful. It's about waking up. When a man truly begins to see through the illusion, one of the first things he realizes is that love, at least the way it's often idealized, is not unconditional. For men, love is often transactional. A woman's affection, no matter how sincere it may feel in the moment, is usually contingent on something: status, strength, emotional stability, or security. This isn't cruelty, it's nature. It's a selection mechanism. Evolution has ensured that women, generally, are drawn to traits that signal a man can provide, protect, and endure. Remove those traits, and the affection that once seemed eternal can evaporate overnight. If this is all making sense to you, hit the subscribe button and join the paradox theory. Thank you. But what makes this reality so brutal is that it often masquerades as romance. Men are told from a young age to win her heart, to be vulnerable, to love purely. And while those things might feel noble, they rarely align with what actually inspires long-term female desire. A man who becomes too available, too emotional, too accommodating. He may think he's deepening the bond, but more often than not, he's eroding the very mystery and edge that attracted her in the first place. There's a reason why stories of women leaving their partners at the first sign of struggle are so common. Not because all women are shallow or cruel. No, it's because their nature responds to power, to competence, to emotional containment. And when a man crumbles, when he becomes a source of instability rather than a solution to it, her subconscious begins to sound the alarm. The protection mechanism is triggered. Nature tells her, this man can no longer carry the burden. Move on. It's difficult for most men to hear, especially those who have poured their hearts into relationships, who have made sacrifices only to be discarded when their value diminished in the eyes of the one they trusted. But again, this isn't about hatred. It's not even about blame. It's about finally seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. In truth, many women don't fully understand their own drives. The hypergamous instinct, the drive to seek out the best possible mate, often at the expense of stability, is not something women consciously choose. It's biological. It's built into their nervous system. It has kept their bloodlines alive for thousands of generations. And now, in a world where women have more choice and freedom than ever, that instinct runs unchecked, often leading to confusion, conflict, and broken bonds. What makes it even more complex is that society encourages this misalignment. We are told that love is love, that equality is the answer, that relationships should be 50-50 in every respect. But attraction doesn't work that way. Respect doesn't work that way. A woman doesn't truly want to be equal to her man. She wants to look up to him, admire him, feel his strength, and be enveloped by his stability. She may say otherwise, but her attraction rarely lies. This is why so many modern relationships fail, because the man, trying to be progressive and kind and understanding, waters himself down. He compromises too much, seeks approval, loses his edge, and slowly but surely she loses respect. Not because she's bad, but because she's wired to respond to strength, not softness. Now, none of this means a man should be cruel or domineering. Far from it. But he must be solid, unmoved, focused. He must live as if he were alone, even when he's in a relationship. His purpose must be his North Star. And if she fits into that journey, so be it. If she doesn't, he keeps walking. Because a man who orients himself around a woman will always find himself off course. Many men wake up to this reality only after a brutal heartbreak, after being left when they were most vulnerable, after giving their all, only to be replaced. It's in these moments of darkness that a man must either fall into bitterness or rise into clarity. He must choose victim or master, complainer or creator. And those who rise, they begin to see the pattern. They begin to see that the path forward is not in chasing validation, but in building value. Not in trying to be liked, but in becoming formidable. These men stop asking, "Why doesn't she love me?" and start asking, "Am I living in a way that commands respect?" Because ultimately, the only security a man has in this world is his own competence, his own discipline, his own clarity of purpose. When a man becomes these things, he no longer needs to worry about female nature, because he understands it. He doesn't resent it. He works with it. He sets boundaries. He selects carefully. He remains rooted, even as the world around him shifts. And ironically, it is this strength that women respond to most. Not the begging, not the pleading, not the emotional outbursts, but the silent power of a man who is deeply at peace with himself, who needs nothing from her, but chooses to share his presence. That is the paradox. The less you need her, the more she feels pulled toward you. The less you chase, the more she invests. But you can't fake it. You can't pretend to be strong. You must actually become strong. You must cultivate that core of iron within you. You must build a life so rich and disciplined that her presence becomes a complement, not a necessity. This journey isn't easy. It requires cutting through illusions, shedding old habits, embracing solitude, and facing the brutal truths that society works hard to conceal. But once a man steps onto this path, he starts to feel something he hasn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Not freedom from women, but freedom from need. Freedom from seeking. Freedom from the endless loop of validation and disappointment. And in that freedom, paradoxically, lies his greatest power. Because when you no longer need love, you become the kind of man who is truly capable of giving it, from a place of abundance, not desperation. The modern man must awaken. He must learn to see not just what is beautiful, but what is true. He must develop the ability to appreciate a woman's charm without being enslaved by it, to respect her nature without being ruled by it, to love her, perhaps, but always from a position of sovereignty. Because in the end, a man who knows himself, who has done the work, who has embraced the cold clarity of reality, cannot be broken by love lost or loyalty betrayed. He walks alone if he must. He leads. He builds. And when a woman sees such a man, she knows, whether she admits it or not, that he is rare, that he is dangerous, that he is free. They call it love, but how often is it merely a transaction, veiled in affection, masked as mutual need, but at its core, built on self-interest? A man yearns to be admired, respected, desired. A woman often seeks protection, provision, elevation. This arrangement is not inherently wrong. It is biological, deeply rooted in evolution. Yet, modern society demands that we pretend this dance is pure, romantic, ideal. We pretend there are no motives beneath the surface, when in truth, there always are. The man who gives too freely without understanding the value of what he offers becomes invisible. He becomes a utility, not a man. The truth is, when you provide without discrimination, without demand, you do not appear generous, you appear cheap. And the same women who gladly accept your offerings may feel no affection for you. They may, in fact, resent you, because you are not commanding their respect. You are merely submitting to their approval. This is not cruelty, it is psychological reality. We are wired to value what is scarce, to crave what must be earned. A man who gives himself freely is not loved more. He is questioned. Why is he so eager? What is wrong with him that he must prove his worth with gifts, validation, or devotion? Women, whether they admit it or not, instinctively test men. They test for strength, for backbone, for stability. Not just financial, but emotional. Will he stand his ground? Will he say no? Will he walk away? Or is he just another man desperate for approval? The modern man is often confused, caught between two realities. On the one hand, he's told to be sensitive, to open up, to be emotionally available. On the other, he watches as those who do are often overlooked. They're labeled as nice guys, relegated to the background while women chase the indifferent, the unavailable, the mysterious. Why? Because there is an unspoken truth. Desire is not born from comfort. It is born from tension. A woman desires a man who can anchor her chaos, not one who amplifies it. She does not want a mirror of her emotional volatility. She wants the man who remains unmoved, who holds himself like a mountain in the storm. That steadiness, that restraint, it commands both respect and attraction. Yet we raise boys to be the opposite, to seek approval, to accommodate, to defer. And then we wonder why they are broken, why they are angry, lonely, or confused. A woman may tell you she wants a sensitive man, but watch how she reacts when she meets one. Does she gravitate toward him, or does she quickly lose interest? Her words say one thing, but her actions betray another. She may not even realize it herself. Desire is not a choice. It is a response. And responses are shaped not by ideology, but by biology. Too many men today do not understand their own worth because they do not understand female nature. They think love is earned through obedience, through gifts, through declarations of affection. But no woman falls in love with a man for what he gives her. She falls in love with how he makes her feel. And the man who remains calm, who is slightly unpredictable, who withholds just enough to create longing, that is the man she obsesses over. There is a brutal truth in that. A man must be willing to walk away, not because he doesn't care, but because he knows he cannot lose himself to someone who does not value him. This power, this silence, this self-respect, it's what makes him rare. And rarity is what breeds desire. Many women are not consciously manipulative, but they are strategic. They know how to cultivate attention, how to test, how to provoke. The woman who pushes your boundaries is not necessarily trying to hurt you. She is trying to see what you're made of. Will you fold? Will you beg? Will you chase? Or will you stand firm, without anger, without need? Strength does not mean aggression. It means control. It means not being reactive. When a man reacts emotionally, she sees weakness, not passion. She sees a man who has lost control of his frame, and once that frame collapses, so does her respect. There is a type of silence that is louder than any declaration, a type of absence that commands more attention than presence. When a man can disappear fully, without warning, without drama, he communicates that his world does not revolve around her approval. That is the ultimate power, not cruelty, not games, just self-respect in its purest form. You do not need to be rich, famous, or powerful to possess this. You simply need to be unwilling to negotiate your value. Most men fail because they negotiate. They try to convince, to explain, to persuade. But a woman does not fall in love through logic. She falls in love through emotion. And nothing evokes emotion more than a man who is indifferent to approval. There is something paradoxical about female desire. The man who gives too much is rarely loved in return. But the man who gives nothing, he is feared, hated, fantasized about. She wants him to care, but only once he has shown he doesn't need to. That is the strange nature of attraction. Women crave the man who can touch the edges of their soul and vanish. Not because he is a ghost, but because he is free. He has not placed his worth in her hands. He is complete without her. That completeness is magnetic. It is the opposite of need. Most men are trapped in a cycle of need. They need validation, sex, affection, attention. And because they need, they chase, they compromise, they suffer. But the man who needs nothing controls everything. He is not cold, he is whole. He chooses rather than pleads. He gives, but only to the worthy. This is the law of value. That which is easily given is easily dismissed. That which is rare is pursued. Men must become rare, not through arrogance, but through discipline, through restraint, through an unshakable belief in their own worth. The world does not reward the desperate. It rewards the grounded. You can love a woman deeply, but never let that love erode your self-respect. Never beg, never plead, never chase. If she walks away, let her. If she tests you, smile. If she doubts you, let time prove her wrong. Your worth is not something to be negotiated in the marketplace of emotion. It is something you guard like a secret, something you wear quietly like armor. Women do not want to lead, they want to surrender, but they can only surrender to a man who is stronger than their chaos. Not stronger in muscle, but in spirit, in composure, in silence. Masculinity is not aggression. It is stillness. It is presence. It is the power to observe without reacting, to remain calm when provoked, to disappear when disrespected, to return only when respect is restored. Most men speak too much, reveal too much, give too much, and in doing so they dilute their power. But the man who speaks less, moves with intention, gives only when it aligns with his values, he is unforgettable. Not because he is perfect, but because he is rare. This is not about manipulating women. It is about understanding yourself, about reclaiming your value in a world that tries to make you forget it, about realizing that not every woman deserves access to your time, your energy, or your heart. There are women who will never respect you, no matter how kind, generous, or loyal you are, not because they are evil, but because they do not value what they do not earn. You cannot make someone love you by sacrificing your dignity. In fact, that's the fastest way to lose them. And still, the illusion persists. Man sees in her what he wants to see: grace, innocence, nurturing warmth. But these are projections, not realities. Nature did not design her to be the saintly figure of man's fantasies. Nature equipped her to survive, to attract, to manipulate, to secure resources and protection through the only power she inherently holds: her desirability. And for millennia, this has been enough. She has refined it like an art form. She doesn't need brute strength. She possesses the far subtler and more lethal tool of suggestion, of presence, of innuendo. She wins not by force, but by submission that commands. And how brilliantly the world turns to serve her ends, without ever realizing it's doing so. Even in modernity, where we claim to be enlightened, the pedestal remains. She's worshipped not for her deeds, not for her sacrifices, but for simply being. A beautiful woman is elevated to the divine, while an intelligent man is doubted, challenged, made to prove himself again and again. This imbalance isn't a recent invention. It is the echo of a biological and psychological game that has run for tens of thousands of years. And still, we haven't outgrown it. We dress it up in new terms: empowerment, freedom, liberation. But the game is the same. It's just harder to see now because it's masked in the language of progress. But nature is not interested in equality. Nature is interested in efficiency, survival, and replication. And from this perspective, her strategy has been devastatingly effective. The man who chases ideals is blind to the underlying mechanics. He doesn't see the trade-offs. He thinks love is pure, that she wants him for his soul. But love, in most cases, is simply a transaction dressed in poetry. He gives her protection, provision, validation, and she gives him the illusion of loyalty until a better offer comes along. This isn't cruelty, it's design. The same way gravity is not evil for pulling you down a cliff. It's simply how the system works. What's tragic is not her nature. It's his refusal to see it. It's the man who writes her love letters while she sleeps in another man's bed. It's the man who sacrifices his future to give her comfort in the present. He believes he is virtuous, romantic, noble. But in truth, he is simply misinformed. He is a tool in a system he does not understand. And until he opens his eyes, he will suffer for it. He'll call it heartbreak. He'll call it betrayal. But it's not betrayal. It's simply reality catching up with illusion. And what about loyalty? What about commitment? Surely some women are different. Surely not all play this game. And yes, there are exceptions. But that's the key. They are exceptions. The rule remains. A woman may be loyal if it suits her needs, if her hypergamous instinct is satisfied, if the social consequences of leaving are too high. But give her a better deal, one that comes without consequence, and many will take it without hesitation. Not because she is evil, but because she is optimized for survival and comfort. It is simply what nature has programmed, and the problem deepens when society encourages this instinct rather than balancing it. We tell women they deserve everything, no matter their actions. We train them to believe that their feelings are truth, that their desires are moral imperatives. And we punish men for questioning this. A man who refuses to pedestalize is called bitter, insecure, misogynistic. But in reality, he is simply awakening. He's beginning to see behind the mask, to question the spell that binds him. And that questioning is dangerous, because once the illusion breaks, it never returns. And yet, many men cling to it. Even after betrayal, even after humiliation, they still hope. They think the next one will be different. But the wise man knows that the pattern does not change simply because the face does. He knows that what he is fighting is not one individual, but an ancient script written into our biology. He doesn't hate women for this. He simply stops worshiping them. He begins to see them not as angels or demons, but as human beings, subject to the same evolutionary forces as himself. This is the path to freedom. Not bitterness, not revenge, but clarity. The man who understands female nature is no longer surprised. He is no longer a slave to hope. He deals with reality on its terms, not his fantasies. And in doing so, he regains his power. He no longer needs to please to be loved. He no longer begs for affection. He becomes the chooser, not the chosen. And that shift changes everything. And so must we. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read your experiences and reflections. And if this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe. It's important, much more than you imagine. And trust me, the journey we're on together is just getting started. The next videos are going to go even deeper, so stick around. You won't want to miss what's coming next. See you soon.